Guys, welcome back to the Brisket Medic, and we're teaching you how to start cooking on a stick burner. This is going to be offset smoking for beginners series. Last week we talked a little bit about fire management and wood selection, and now I want to talk to you about your first cook. This is going to be a pork butt that you absolutely love, that's extremely easy for beginners on an offset smoker. Come on. Pork butt's an extremely easy meat to cook, mostly because the amount of fat intermuscularly, it makes it very, very forgiving. Now, we're gonna go bone in, and bone in is gonna typically take longer to cook, but I think it's going to give you a little bit more leeway and forgiveness in your cook, especially for a beginner on an offset smoker. So we've got our bone-in pork butt here, and I'm going to be using just a very simple Uncle Steve shake, the original shake on this one. You can use whatever barbecue rub that you like, but remember, we're cooking this for a long time, and if you have something with a ton of sugar in it, it's just going to burn and your bark is going to get a little bit bitter. So let's go ahead and fire up the smoker, get that thing ready to go, and we'll jump in to this easy pork butt. It's going to taste amazing for beginners on an offset smoker. All right, let's get down in here and get started. Like I said, we're starting with a bone-in pork butt. This is a very simple and forgiving cut, and I think it's going to be great. And your family's going to really enjoy it. You're going to really enjoy it, and it's going to be a great introduction to offset cooking. So you see how moist this is coming right out of the package. It doesn't have any pellicle or anything like that on it from being dried out, and it's going to hold really, really well to the rub. And the only trimming we're going to do is something loose like that, because it'll burn. We're not going to get too fancy. We're not going to get too far into all the more advanced tips. We're just doing basic, easy steps here. A little bit of fat there. Make sure your knife's nice and sharp, and make sure your meat is cold as well. And then this fat cap, we're going to leave it on, and I'm going to score it just a little bit, not a ton, not really deep, just enough so that the sodium and everything from the rub can penetrate this side of the meat, because smoke and flavor doesn't penetrate through fat or oil. That's why when I do rub, I don't recommend using oil or mayonnaise of any kind, because it's just not going to penetrate. So because we're cooking on an offset smoker, we are going to be cooking this fat side up, and so when we season it, we want to go fat side down to begin with. And oh, there's a little piece there we're going to lob off. And generally I tell people cut the corners, do this and that, but let's not worry about that for now. We're being fundamental. We're getting started here right now. This is just a beginner's recipe. Our money muscles here, you don't really need to worry about that. Your bone side's over here, and this is fat side down. So let's go ahead and get some Uncle Steve's original shake on it. And make sure you get a good heavy coat of shake. This is a large piece of meat, and so it can take all of this flavor without it being overpowered. Okay, you're not going to overpower this, and this doesn't have a ton of sugar in it, so it's not going to burn like we talked about earlier. Make sure you get the sides really, really well. Look at that money muscle. That's not a bad money muscle. If you know, you know. Anyways, now we're on the fat side, and I never rub my meat, but I do want to kind of open these serrations up a little bit with my finger as we're putting this rub on, and it's going to not only give a really great flavor, but as this fat renders down, it's going to get an amazing kind of a bacony finish, color, and flavor to it. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Now we're just going to leave this alone. We're going to let this set and let this moisture draw out just a hair on the outside, and that's going to help build our bark. And while our fire's getting up to temp, we want our fire to be right around 275 degrees. So while our fire's getting up to temp, we're gonna let this sit. If you want to put it in the fridge, if you got a lot of flies like I do, do that. As soon as your temp gets up to 275 degrees, that smoke goes from a little bit of white to kind of bluish and clear. It's time to go ahead and throw our pork butt on, and I'll pick you up then. Now that our smoker's getting up to temp, we're going to go ahead and throw our pork butt on there, bone side facing the firebox and fat side up. If you have any bare spots, this would be a good time to go ahead and tap those in. And you can always touch up with a shaker throughout the cook. We're going to shut this down, and all we're going to do is manage the fire for the next 3 hours. We're not going to open this door at all for 3 hours. So watch your fire. Anytime your temps drop, give yourself a leeway of like 5 degrees. They start dropping down 5 degrees below your target temp, throw another split on there. That may be 10, 15 minutes at a time. That may be 30, 45 minutes at a time. You got to learn your pit. We'll see you back here in 3 hours. Folks, it's been 3 hours and we've left this lid alone. We've just been managing our fire, watching that temp to drop down and adding more wood to keep us in that 275 degree average range. Whether it dropped below and we built our fire and got it up higher, we want that average to be 275 and leave this door down for 3 hours. Let's go ahead and take a look and see the progress our butt's making. Oh yeah. A lot of great color there. The bone is starting to pull away on this side by just a little bit. Getting a lot of color on the edges. Don't worry about that. That's perfectly fine. Getting a bark forming. Our score marks are starting to separate. That means that fat is rendering nicely. So we're actually just going to leave this alone for another hour, and we'll come back and see if we need to spritz it at all. All right, we're 4 hours in, folks, and I'm willing to bet this bark is rendering down beautifully. So let's go ahead and take a look at it and see where we're at. Oh yeah, take a look at this bark over here. It's getting a beautiful color on it, but check this out. See that bubbling, that rendering down of the fat? So what I really want to do at this point in time is check an internal temperature. I think this is going to be hitting our stall point here pretty soon, which there's no guarantees in anything, but I can guarantee you that you will almost always hit a stall in large cuts of meat, including pork butt. So, and that's going to happen between 155 and 160. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We're hitting right at 150. See if I can hold that. I don't know if you can see that, but it was 150, 151, somewhere in there. So we're going to go ahead and leave it on here for another 30 minutes, throw another log on the fire, and then in 30 minutes, it's going to be in that stall point, and we want to wrap it up at that point. So here in about 30 minutes, I'll bring you back out here and we'll get it wrapped up. All right, guys, it's been another 30, 45 minutes. So we are right at just under 5 hours in, and it's time to go ahead and wrap this up. So I'm going to show you how I like to wrap it up and the additives I like to use that's going to be changeable to your likings, your flavor profiles, whatever you want. But remember, we're building a foundation for good information for basic, brand new cookers on an offset cooker, a stick burner for this pork butt. So we're going to pull this off. We're going to put it in the middle of our foil, and we're going to add half a cup of fruit juice, whether that be apple or orange, or like me, I'm using just fruit juice, just a mix of all of it, because that's what we had for the kids, and that's what I'm going to use. Really, the important thing is having moisture and sugar content in there. And when you get that, wrap it up really, really tight, making sure that your seam is at the top with the fat side still up. We're going to put that back in the smoker, and we're going to keep this thing rocking at 275 until we get a reading of an internal temperature of about 205 to 210 degrees, and I'll see you then. All right, guys, we're right at 7.5 hours in, and it's time to go ahead and check this pork butt to see what the temperature is. And we see that the temperature is right at 200 degrees, and it's spiking up over 200 in certain places. So we're going to go ahead and pull it out and set it on the countertop out here on the back porch kitchen, and open up this foil to let some of that steam escape and stop the cooking process. Now, it's really important we stop this cooking process, because what's going to happen is we need for this meat to cool down, because those walls of those cells are very weak at this moment. So if we go ahead and just shred into it right now, it's going to look really moist and amazing, but it's not going to be moist when we eat it, because those cell walls are going to break down and lose all their moisture. You got to let this cool down to about 160 degrees before you shred it, or you're going to be eating a lot of dry pork. It'll look really amazing when you do it. It'll look really moist when you do it, but it dries out very, very quickly. You got to let it cool down and let those cell walls keep their integrity as it cools down to that 150, 160 degrees. So when you shred it, you're not just tearing apart all those cell walls and losing all the moisture in your pork butt that you worked so hard to accomplish. This is going to be absolutely amazing. It'll probably take 30-45 minutes just sitting here and opened up and venting and things like that to come down to 160 degrees. I'll bring you back when it's ready for that, and we'll try it out. And you, at that point, have completed an amazing pork butt on your stick burner. As a beginner, you're going to be the hero of your block. Alright, so we've let our pork butt rest till it's about 160, 150 degrees internal temperature, and I actually moved it over to a bowl from the full pouch so that it'd be a little bit easier to do our next step. You know it's done when you can see that the bone removes from the rest of the meat with zero sticking. Pretty great. Alright, so there's a lot of moisture, but there's also a lot of fat rendition that comes with this particular cut of meat. This is upside down. This was the bottom. This was the meat side that we cooked on the entire time. But man, look at the absolute just crazy easy pull from it. Alright, so we used our Magna Chef gloves to go ahead and shred this pulled pork. We're going to add just a little bit more of our Uncle Steve's original shake. And remember, use your favorite barbecue rub. And at this point, it doesn't matter if it has a lot of sugar or not, because we're not burning. Remember, we're just mixing it into our already finished product. We let it slow down the cook. We let it stop the cooking process so that it can retain that moisture. Remember, you don't want to be shredding your pork butt with it still steaming and letting off a lot of heat. You got to let that thing cool down. I've seen a lot of videos on the internet full of dudes grabbing these pork butts with their gloves sort of like this, and steam just pouring off of them. I'm like, man, in 5 minutes those things are going to be dry as hell. So remember, let them cool down. Mix in your favorite rub. Keep them juices in there. And just knead it like it's a dough. It's not mushy. It still has structure to it. You didn't overcook it. You didn't undercook it. And you have created the absolute perfect, amazing backyard pulled pork barbecue. You can add barbecue sauce to this if you want to. You can do a lot of amazing things. You can make tacos. You can make sandwiches. You can make this a protein on its own. And you, a brand new offset stick burning owner, can do amazing barbecue just like this. Guys, if I've helped you, if I have allowed you to learn something, if I've given you entertainment or education or anything like that, make sure you hit that thumbs up you hit that subscribe, and you comment down below what smoker you use and what you like to cook in it. But this right here is absolutely amazing. Outstanding pork butt. There's a link for Uncle Steve's down below. You won't be disappointed. I love you guys. Drink more water.